Place 33, Secrets of Universal Truths Revealed by Sherilyn Bridget Avalon. Chapter 12, Ego Discord. We're back in Vegas, a couple days later. Sherilyn had a date with Sterling. They had a little argument at the end of dinner. He asked her how many sex partners she had over the years. She thought it's none of your business, but maybe the information would be safe with him, she figured. So she told him the truth. He acted okay with it on the surface, but Sterling hid it very well. At first, Sterling briskly told Sherilyn the elevator of enlightenment was repaired. They got the keys and drove from the restaurant to the wind tunnel, also known as Vegas Indoor Skydiving. We can't go to the place. There's too much friction right now. This place is called Red Arc. What does it look like? Sherilyn asked. There's bright orange and yellow and white clear light all around. The sky is empty here, he says, with his mouth in a tight line. We're here right now because we're in conflict. I'm angry and irritated at you because you didn't tell me how many sex partners you had. That's it? That's what you're upset about? What about you? You're the biggest flirt I know. How many sex partners have you had? Sherilyn shouts at him. Then turning to St. Stephen, she says, I have a more important question. What happens when a man and a woman come together and have intercourse? What happens in the spiritual world? They become one. They're then a whole organism, St. Stephen replies. Through Sterling, who is crossing his arms now. They are always tied to each other. So if you have a lot of sex partners, you're forever tied to these people? Sherilyn asks. Yes, Sterling shouts. That's why you're so mad? You believed you are tied to these souls indefinitely. What? I don't understand, Sherilyn inquired. Is it like a cord attaching each other spiritually? Yeah, in a way, St. Stephen interjects. The number of sexual partners contributes to the fabric of the individual. You just have more texture, Sherilyn. Sherilyn says to St. Stephen, Sterling's had a lot of sex partners during his lifetime. Does that mean he has a lot of texture? Knowing, of course, he is his vessel on earth, he's not going to say something bad about himself. St. Stephen replied, Sterling's had sex with many different people in a void. It gave him a certain detachment. Once in a while, there are people like this. So, can I do this? She asked, feeling cheated because she didn't know. St. Stephen replies, yes, by gaining the wisdom of clarity which comes through forgiveness. What happens when people have sex with partners of the same sex? What happens spiritually? Sherilyn asked St. Stephen. It magnifies their energy. We're all made of energy. As souls of humanity, we have bodies, and the body stores both masculine and feminine energy. Some males are born with more female energy, and some females are born with more male energy. It depends on how the matter configures itself. All should know they are all children of the one triune God. They should know they are all loved equally, St. Stephen says. Sherilyn, in the life you're living, you're female, St. Stephen continues. However, you have a significant amount of masculine energy, and this male energy is incorporated into your mindset and the parameters of your soul at present. On balance, you're predominantly female, including your mind. So it's odd you have an enormous blind spot understanding maleness. I find it peculiar. You have it because you don't want to remember. You want to forget many things because you're afraid. You have difficulty understanding men, so you don't collaborate and cooperate with them. as well as you could. You're going through a process of remembering, St. Stephen instructs her. Why did Sterling and I get so mad at each other like that? Sherilyn asks, as Sherilyn is watching a diagram of explanation appear. St. Stephen responds, ego discord. When you get angry, there's a formation of accelerated male energy escaping, being projected, sort of a disk. An appendage is always forming. A third body out of two interacting entities is created. It's karmic, cellular, molecular, and it's atomic. In essence, you are pure energy. But it's so flat, I can only see the edge, and it's only an appendage when looked at peripherally. If you look at it from top down, it's a disk. It goes all the way out, around, and back into you. What does this disk thing have to do with me and Sterling getting into an argument? She asks. Your male wave or vibration got long and it stung him repeatedly. You have a considerable amount of male energy for female embodiment. Obviously, there's no right or wrong, St. Stephen retorts and continues. It's just how you're structured. Your shortwave is the color red, flat, and straight. It doesn't extend too far away from you. But when you get angry, your wave lengthens because you're adding male energy to your female wave. It elongates, in fact, it curves. The female energy acts as a receptacle or a receiver. Something is triggered and the two become masculine because male energy is dominant. There's a convergence of unmanageable energy. See the illustration. You could say it's like a small explosion, or at least a spark. There is definitely friction in an energetic context. It's too much charge, so it must go somewhere. This will no longer be with the change in female polarity. Sterling and I don't like each other right now, Sherilyn pouts. Again, the issue is male energy. On balance, he has more male-based energy as a polarity. You have more female-based energy. The appendage is formed as a departure from your ego discord, St. Stephen continues. Joseph steps in to impart his knowledge. The imbalance of energy is revealing. The newly formed appendages are shot out because the male energy in this instance can't contain itself. It's oversaturation for him. When you have an overabundance of energy, it must go somewhere. So it leaves the embodiment. The intensity of the friction depends on how far it goes out. In your case, Sherilyn, it always returns because you're the female pole. Interestingly, no matter how hard you try, you can feel the stillness, but you can't exactly be the stillness. It's a polarity unto itself. You can always find peace. If you think it, it will be true. Joseph follows with, I've figured out managing male energy means more atoms are involved. It's extra dense and has more aggressive tendencies. Female energy has a gentler, more receptive, passive orientation to its energy. Of course, one can't exist without the other. Neither can exist in harmony 100% of the time. Something that isn't constant can't always be perfectly sustained. He continues, no matter what the conflict, any discord should be viewed in the language of energy. Visualization can help a great deal. Because of the language barrier, most people aren't highly articulate with energy as a language or a form of communication. They can't take their feelings, their mental images, everything that makes up the symbols of how their senses are communicating, and convert that unspoken stuff into words. It's difficult to achieve with true precision. Obviously, some are pure symbols, which make visualization more accurate. This is why it's instrumental to teach those who don't visualize well. The problem is, when dealing with patterns of energy, Influenced by something as extremely subjective and ego-based as emotion, you can maneuver another individual by bypassing the ego-conscious mind. Allow them to feel balanced energetically. However, if they're extremely imbalanced, then it's a temporary solution, like anything chronic tends to be. Start laying a foundation of balance. Children are a good example as to why concreteness is so important. Everything's a metaphor for everything else. When you lay a concrete foundation psychologically in an individual and manage it, balance happens. By being stable yourself, stability in your relationship is the result. Sterling was born expanded, St. Stephen explains. His unconscious cognitive memory was active early in his childhood. This happens to individuals in present incarnations. These are multi-layered, of course. Take their tapes, lay them on top of each other, and they'll all be joined together. They can be accessed consciously, and they're always being influenced unconsciously or energetically too. Certain people learn more quickly than others. You can say this is an attribute of inheritance, genetics, or coming from a supportive, nurturing environment with highly intelligent and creative minds, guiding and instructing a child as he or she grows. If this individual didn't have layered tapes from previous experiences, surprisingly, it doesn't matter. I found when Sterling speaks of tapes, he is speaking about the tapes each of us has recorded of our life experiences on each lifetime. That is why hypnosis works so well. I can access your unconscious tape and rewind and fast forward to get information, Sherilyn revealed. Joseph is emphatic about understanding energy and how to manipulate it is an extremely useful tool. You can coax it, even stroke it. Energy can actually be pushed around, he says. How? Sherilyn asks. Through my words? Through visualization exercises? No, actually, it happens through projection. Joseph responds. Clearly, it isn't one of the five senses. Energy can feel like stillness, although literally speaking, it's never still. Focus, center yourself, and feel the stillness of energy. Joseph interjects. If you can project that stillness, you're actually projecting energy. When it interacts with other energies, something else is formed. That's a flexible description of how to manipulate energy. However, try it sometime, and you may be happily bowled over by what happens as a result. St. Stephen steps in. I'll share an example. Projection of energy is the reason why you can stand behind a complete stranger, stare at the back of their head, and really concentrate, and eventually they'll turn around. Of course, you must get yourself still enough, focus hard enough, and push the thought toward them. It's simply a manipulation of what is. Changing subjects from sexual matters, Sherilyn asked St. Stephen, how can I better understand and implement energy to reflect the material world in a monetary medium? By doing exactly what you don't want to do, St. Stephen responds. It's necessary to do all the things you feel repelled by when you think about doing them. Examples include being pragmatic, having self-discipline, being focused and clear with good organization, being methodical, and being linear and concrete. This will begin to balance the scale within you. Given the level you're on, you'll benefit greatly from the disciplines you haven't wanted to undertake. You grasp abstract concepts easily. However, your imagination isn't what it should be. Skin problems are part of your karmic lesson, but this can be processed out. You're also paying a karmic sexual debt because you shouldn't have sex only for self-gratification, and you shouldn't go against the grain of what you've learned. You'll pay in karma for that, St. Stephen concludes. I like to think in units, Joseph reveals. Your ego unit is about 1/3 yellow, 1/3 green, and 1/3 brown. Sterling's ego unit starts out red, goes to pink, and then to blue. What happens is our ego units form a molecular structure. It looks like a chain. There are 6 segments following each other around, each one trying to dominate the other. When observing the occurrence of it, I look at the east side to the left as you view it. The body of the energy it forms between 2 organic energy units, male and female, interacts. It's made up of intense emotion. Joseph concludes. Balance is the key, St. Stephen states. Do we need our ego? Sherilyn asks. If we're expanding spiritually, where does all this fit in? How do you get to the best version of yourself? Everything has its place. It's all about keeping things in balance. The ego needs and wants control, Joseph says. Ego energy is unyielding, rigid, and inflexible. The core essence of our humanity isn't reality based. When out of balance, the ego self contains a great deal of fear. The more the ego gets in balance, the louder its voice becomes. Conversely, the spiritual voice becomes quieter and harder to hear. When you bring the ego into balance, you awaken in the truth. 2 people must compromise with each other's egos to build trust and look in the mirror. St. Stephen steps in with fatherly love and explains, this is how you look at your ego. First, you must know you have the gift of life. Second, you have the gift of creating. Third, focus on one blessing every day. All right, Sterling drew a picture of some egos. We have a picture of Frank's ego, and we have a picture of Sterling's ego, Joseph explains. Why is Frank's ego so pointed, and why is Sterling's ego so big? Sherilyn asks. Frank's ego seems pointed to Sterling because part of it is a reflection of Sterling's perception regarding Frank. It's all subjective. Sterling sees it that way. Therefore, it is. Perception is reality, Joseph reveals. Okay, right, Sherilyn agrees. Just like anyone's ego, most people understand seeing things and situations vary. Subjectively is normal. There will always be a slight variance in beings, yet it is all the same whole thing. This needs to be understood so people accept it, unless they absolutely refuse to acknowledge this important truth. You shouldn't be afraid to talk to people about enlightened matters, he instructs Sherilyn. Okay, Sherilyn ponders. Frank's ego is such because he teaches with pain.
He believes pain makes exceedingly clear points and sends a strong message, says Sterling. Therefore, his ego is pointed, and Frank's ego also takes on an abstract characterization of what he looks like, according to my feelings and perception. But it would be fairly close to your ego if you did the same, Sherilyn.
Really? How do you do it? How can I feel my ego abstractly in order to see it? Sherilyn asked. First, place yourself in the center of your mind geographically. Become as still as you can, and then you free associate. You mean don't think any thoughts? She asked. Empty your mind, and if you can't do that, think only one thought. And if you can't do that, be as calm as you can. Imagine something very calming, he replied. Okay, like imagining the ocean? She questioned. Yes, the ocean is good because it's an archetypal symbol. When people picture the sights and sounds of an ocean, they usually think calm. It's out of the collective unconscious mind, Joseph responded. St. Stephen goes on. Sterling's ego, as you see it, speaks to the malleability of Sterling's thoughts. with peaks and valleys. There are 3 rounded peaks because he's a slightly feminine, softer, more abstract, muted character at his core. Looking at him, you see an ego, which isn't just unique, but also complex and quite different. His ego has soared through a lot of new thought. Compare it to other egos, and it looks new and contemporary. Yes, and I like how you made Angie's ego. It also looks contemporary and beautiful, Sherilyn remarks.
Angie has an aesthetic quality to her that's exemplified through her ego as well. She represents the paragon of beauty, Sterling says.
Yes, and Joseph, you have an ego that looks a little complicated, but it's a nice ego too, Sherilyn replies. St. Stephen continues, if you have any appendages, they're particularly interesting to look at, because where appendages are placed structurally, it speaks to their particular challenges. Oh, really? Sherilyn reacts, noticing she has an appendage. Yes, Margot, your daughter, has a pointed quality to her ego. For example, St. Stephen explains, Margot wants to be a good person, but can't figure out how. She grows frustrated. She has awareness and an understanding. Being well-intentioned will take her farther. She's dragging her past to the point where she's becoming confused. This was when she was 9, Sherilyn retorts. Does color impact our egos? Oh, yeah. It represents a person's character, Joseph answers. Mine is violet. What does that mean? Sherilyn asks. It means you have the potential to be magical, not just warm or curious, but healing. St. Stephen interjects. It's an outgrowth and the flip side of your own ill health. The violet aura represents health and magic in healing. The pink aura is warm, tender, sensitive, nurturing, passive, and attracting. But pink is not as attracting as red. Red is more sensual. Violet speaks more to the intellect. You have it primarily because of what you've experienced, including your karmic debt. You'll never escape it in this lifetime. It's your cross to bear, Joseph informs Sherilyn. Really? There's no way out? I don't believe that, Sherilyn says. What don't you believe about it? St. Stephen asks. I believe there's a solution for everything. You can go beyond karmic debt, Sherilyn states firmly. There's no way to avoid the pain of the misplaced actions you put into motion. You must accept the structure of yourself. You'll gain a special brand of knowledge, which will evolve into your unique style of dealing with life within the margins. You might grow an appendage, which is part of why your symbol is how it is, Joseph explains patiently. Why is my symbol like that? It appears I have an appendage, Sherilyn remarks. Yes, it speaks to your potential to grow out of it. Oh, it's kind of balanced like my ego, but a different shape. It's your way out, and the path you should take, Joseph mentions. The shape of this symbol represents your life. It also represents a composite of what you know and how you deal with life. The appendage is the avenue which gives you hope for a better life. It's grown out of what you know and what you're going through. Due to the misplacement in this life, that appendage is almost premeditated. It was given to you deliberately, Joseph relays. How can that be? She asked. Because what makes up the superior godlike quality of Angie has allowed her the luxury of doing this for certain fragments. She wanted to give you an out. However, this will occur at the end of your life, St. Stephen explained. Thank you, Angie. What about the pincher part of the ego? We both have that, Sherilyn asked. The pincher is the ability of the ego to grasp or comprehend. Those without a strong pincher, appendage, to their ego lack the ability to grasp, comprehend, or understand easily. The more distinct the pincher is, the easier it is for the ego to seize new information. St. Stephen continues, can people inherit this? Do they grow or develop that pincher? Do you get it through many lifetimes? Sherilyn asked, her interest piqued. Yes, it is developed through evolving, St. Stephen replies. Evolution, I see. My daughter Sally has a tiny ego. She'll grow and her ego will grow too, right? Then she might get a pincher, Sherilyn says. Yes, that's correct, he affirms. Sherilyn remarks, her color may change too, right? Certainly, that's possible. Sometimes not, though. Usually our ego color is formed early on. This is because it speaks to the nature of the ego. Margot's ego color is yellow. What does that mean? Sherilyn queries. It means she's fresh, receptive, wise, and yet unformed. She has a potential for wisdom and for wealth, he says. What if you have a black ego color? What does that mean? Sherilyn comments. Frank has that color. St. Stephen replied, the ego color black speaks to his sorrow, pain, and futility. He has a suffering quality of life. It also connects to the abyss, the density, harshness, discipline, narrow-mindedness, and the opposite of all things that are white and light. And green? Sherilyn asked, fascinated. Green connects to what you'd expect. Green is the life's blood. It's the potential for the proliferation of life, birth, nurturing, and all beauty in life that's presently alive. Green could be the ego color of a person who appears to be self-serving, but they're truly nurturing themselves to the point of saturation. Afterward, they can be more nurturing to other people, he says. What about a lopsided ego, an ego that's off balance, Sherilyn wondered. A lopsided ego is a person trying to be stable, which is an unstable thought. The intellect is in conflict with the emotions, St. Stephen replies. Okay, what does the term theurgic or theurgic powers refer to? Sherilyn sneaks in one more question. Theurgic powers refers to powers beyond the veil in a sour way. It's a bitter, almost insidious desire for the ego, but deeper. It's not as a pure thing. The definition is the operation or effect of a supernatural or divine agency in human affairs, St. Stephen explains. Sterling's anger feels like it has dissipated. I feel it is best when you talk things out, no matter how difficult you think the subject is in your ego. I feel the need to call upon Angie, even though she has been there the whole time listening. Then she appears in a shimmering robe. I turn into my spiritual self. Angie transmits, I am the breath of all before you. With me, your life will be filled with light. Follow it. Beware of the P, poison, and follow the A, Angie, and the S, St. Stephen. Don't be tempted. With me, you will be pure and come home. Am I on the right path? Sherilyn asks. Angie relays, I'll turn the book over, and Sterling will look from back to front.
This, of course, means front to back on earth. To be selfless means to serve oneself. This is a surprising notion for many people. Sterling knows how to read the book. Hold up the mirror to any lie. Hold it up, please.
Look in the book of crystal insight. It's crystal clear and incredibly light. It comes from beneath the tree. This is where I go to write. I love writing about you and all the others, but you're my daughter, the misplaced suffering spirit. Angie transmits. I live within Sterling. I'm in his heart. I also live within Sally. I sent her to you. She is a spark willing to convert you to the light. And she's St. Stephen's granddaughter, even though he doesn't want to admit his age. She's full of energy I impart. You have a partner, and all you must do is listen. The external world is an illusion. On the other hand, I am not an illusion, Angie relays. An illusion? Why am I not making money? Why am I not experiencing abundance and prosperity? Sherilyn asks. Angie relays, because you haven't given enough yet. Don't forget the mirror. Always follow the S and the A. You're tempted and you can convert. Don't be afraid, Sherilyn. Things aren't what they appear. Love will prevail and you'll live in the light. Don't be fooled, she says. Why do I have to live out this life of misplacement, Angie? Sherilyn asked, disappointed. Because it's a process of paring out taint and impurity. It's also to gain wisdom, selflessness, and dwell in the light. Once you're with me, you'll teach others. But you're tempted. Frank lives close by, and he has a female counterpart under your skin. She smells, she works away, and she's tainted. Frangelica is his counterpart. She is trying to speak to you. That's her. She's brown, tall, and smells like nutmeg. Then she rots you, so ignore her, Angie says. I am different. I exist for those ready to bathe in the light. Sterling is becoming a beacon of truth. He's almost there. He's 90% full. Frank has no chance now. Angie says, referring to Sterling attaining power someday from Frank. I am concerned, Angie. Sterling and I don't get along, Sherilyn reveals. I'm attracted to him, but he's too controlling. Don't be ridiculous, Angie says. It's an illusion. Don't believe it, and it'll disappear. He waits on your gifts, so you'll be rewarded. Do you see my daughter, Margot? Sherilyn questions her. Angie replies, Margot is lead, density, very dense. I can taste it. She tastes like density, and her confusion is deep. Her resentment is deeper, and hate is actually love for her. That's why she wanted to leave you in Las Vegas and go back to her father, back home. We need to part the wall for Margot. There's a lead wall in between the light and the semi-light. You forgot to hold up your mirror, the one in the closet. Get it out and look at yourself. Know who you are and what you're doing. I hand the hymns to you, St. Stephen. They're singing hymns within your soul. It's unbelievable, and you don't even know it, St. Stephen relays. You've forgotten your mirror, and now they make fun of you. They think you're a fool. They're so confident they're singing. Yes, the longer they remain, the more songs they sing, and the more difficult your life may become because you don't convert, Angie says. Convert to what? Sherilyn asked. Convert away from the negative, self-serving, self-destructive energy, all the things that make you personal. Convert to the impersonal, selfless, loving, surrendering light you can be. Only you know why you've resisted this, Angie responds. Sherilyn knew she was not only talking about her, she was transmitting thoughts about all of humanity. They started singing the hymns again. Heartless may they be, insensitive are we, male o materially. He has a hand in it too, Angie responds. St. Stephen is the male force within your material world. Be true to your spirit, and you'll want naught. Heartless, insensitive, material, self-serving illusions are what you're buying, and therefore that's what you'll have to sell. A fool's paradise is nothing more than a stepping stone in reverse. Why? Because you think it feels good. Why? Because you think you'll have more. Actually, you'll have less. Why? Do you know? Sterling knows because he's considerably older. He knows. St. Stephen says he only has 10% more to go. You're younger, Sherilyn, but you have an opportunity to learn from me, your spiritual father, in unison with Angie. To betray this would be tragic. You cannot unknow what you already know. You sought and you found, but you don't like everything you found. Why? I'll tell you why. Because you haven't released your ego yet. A well-managed ego is a marvelous servant. An ill-managed ego makes you a slave. Live between the spaces and walk the line. You will know. We love you, Sherilyn. Trust in the light, my spiritual daughter. I do trust in the light, Sherilyn says, a bit defensively.
I love you no matter what happens. I love you so much, Sterling says. I love your creamy body. This is who you really are. This is you in your purest form. You have blue eyes and the creamiest skin. Even your tongue is the same velvety color. You couldn't be more pure. Let's put our feet in the water. Okay, Sherilyn smiles up at him. I love touching you, he murmurs.
Angie comments, I have seen a glimpse of the conversion you can help him make. You give him your pure strength. You convert the 1/3 tainted by light and add to the 10% competence he doesn't have yet. In doing so, he draws upon his potential and implements the things we have to share with him. The presidents have an affinity for Sterling, St. Stephen remarks. The past United States presidents have a noteworthy attraction to his mind. Andrew Jackson says, let's sit down and have some tea. Abraham Lincoln has his hand on Sterling's shoulder. Much earthly sense is linked with Abraham. He was an extremely well-intentioned entity, still influencing things to a limited degree today. These entities, in their essence, are still influential for those who are receptive and open. Call them spirits or ghosts if you like. They're quite real, and I don't mean relatively speaking either. Accept and embrace them. Know they're part of you all. Those who are closer to them are more expanded and older. They all add to the quality of your experience. Sterling is a perfectionist with all things that matter. Your daughter Sally and he share a soul directly from Angie. It has a ticklish molecular quality like a sandwich, with you in the middle like bologna. Joseph interjects. Ha ha ha, very funny, Cheryl laughs half-heartedly. She's like the mayonnaise, it spreads easily, and he's like the bread, forever fresh. Eat the whole thing and stop worrying. Instead, trust in spirit. Pebbles that trip you up, distract you easily. They trip and drip of lessons already learned. Joseph replies, they're insidious little things. They feel familiar, but always have the same result. Spiritual backsliding. Spiritual backsliding is useless. Instead, move ahead. The more you walk forward, the larger your horizon will become. You must trust or nothing works. I don't like the word faith too much. I prefer the word trust. Your daughter, Margot, needs you to dream for her. The two of you are defensively reactionary or backward-looking. You're like coarse grain rubbing itself repeatedly and creating friction and heat, resulting in conflict and redundancy. It's almost as if the two of you are pears from the same tree. Both are trying to escape each other, both wishing there was no pit, but there is. The pit is the taint. The taint is the misplacement caused by Frank and his cohorts, says Joseph. Sherilyn stops, looks over to Angie, and she connects with her again. Love and light dismisses with the game. The game dissolves on the sidewalk of pain. You must trust what you know is true. Margot needs you. Soak up purity and reject taint. It's okay. Just remember to relax, Angie says. I'll dwell within you. Speak and feel from the light, and all will be well. Trust and carry your mirror, she transmits. We're forming a blanket of truth over you in the elevator. You probably won't remember tonight, but we'll cover you in the truth, and you'll remember in the morning. Sleep well, Sherilyn. Angie telepathically relays.